Welcome to Garden Sanity. I'm Laura, and today I want to go over what happens when your Panicle Hydrangeas don't turn pink. In other words, you see them in their beautiful ivory or white or their pale lime green, and you're excited for them to turn pink or pinkish red, and instead they go to brown. What happens? Is it your fault? Is it not your fault? Yes and no, or no and yes. One thing is out of your control and one thing is somewhat in your control. So let's go over both of those. Now this is a Little Lime Punch Hydrangea. This is a Panicle Hydrangea. It grows between 3 and 5 feet tall and wide. And in fact, I brought my tape measure out so we can see how big this guy is. And I'll do it this way. And we see it goes to about there, which is about 30 inches right now. So it's not quite 3 feet tall. So it will grow eventually between 3 and 5 feet tall and wide. And that's why I've allowed such a nice amount of space in this lamppost bed for it to really do its thing. The other thing is it's hardy in zones 3 through 8. Did you guys just see that? I'm in a flight path, I guess, of birds. I can't wait to see what that looks like on camera. Anyway, that was really funny. This is why I love having so many birds out, but I didn't expect that. That was pretty cool. So, what happens when your Panicle Hydrangeas don't turn pretty pink? Now you can see these all have pink this year, and I'm thrilled. I think this is such a great thing. However, last year, which was the first full season that I had this here, I had planted it 2 seasons ago, but last year was really the first complete summer that it grew. And I'll show you a video now. It didn't do well. It had, some pink on it, but it basically went to brown. And there were some panicles that looked beautiful, and there were others, as I said in that video, even though they were brown, I still loved them. I thought they were absolutely beautiful, but I was a little disappointed. And especially with the Little Lime Punch, you see these photos where, like on the plant tag here, you see a photo where they show, not only the pink, but the ivory and then almost like a red color. So you're like, why didn't that happen to me? This plant stinks. That's not the reason. So whether you have a Little Lime Punch or you have a Little Lime or you have a little Quickfire Fab, any of these types of hydrangeas that turn pink, there's 2 things dependent upon it, and one is Mother Nature. And what I mean by that specifically is you need cool temperatures at night so that the plant can rest a little bit and it can start changing color. It actually requires cooler weather to start changing into those beautiful, beautiful pinks. Now last year, we had a brutal hot summer and these went directly to brown. And I was disappointed, like I said. And then I saw that, yes, of course, we did have a brutal summer. Now, we're having as brutal, if not more brutal summer this year. So what's the difference? So the difference this year is that I'm watering better. And watering is something that is in your control. So what happened last year is when I really began to pay attention to this bed, what I noticed was that the sprinkler head that we have right over there that feeds the whole bed actually wasn't really working. It was clogged up. So it was just trickling out water. Well, no wonder these guys went right to brown. They weren't getting enough water. So besides getting hit from the sun, and they are sun to part sun shrubs, besides getting hit from the brutal sun, they weren't getting any water to help nourish their roots and keep the soil moist. These don't want to be drowned in water, but they also don't want to be dry either. So we all want these beautiful colors. You want the beautiful whites, you want the pinks to start changing. Here you can see this one is a lot of pinkish red almost starting, still kind of white at the tip. I've got some over here I'll show you in a minute that are more of a lime green. So you want to make sure you're giving them enough water. I mean, we can't control the cool nights that are needed. And for many of us in the warmer climates, we're not going to get those cool nights until later in the summer into the fall. Now last year we didn't really have much of anything. I don't know what we're going to get this year. But the one thing in my control is the watering. Now when it gets brutally hot out, you're going to want to give them more water just to be on the safe side. Just monitor it. So how do you know if you're watering too much or too little? You can get a soil meter, which can be really helpful. If you're new to gardening especially, those can be very helpful because they go down a little bit further than even your finger goes to tell you if water's getting down to the roots. But a more simpler way is just to look at the leaves. If the leaves are nice and green and healthy, like you see these are, then it's getting a good amount of water. Now, in some cases, just like with any plant, if it dries out, what happens? The leaves start to turn brown. And with Panicle Hydrangeas, a lot of times you'll see that at the edges. If it's too much water, you're going to start seeing some yellowing leaves or yellow leaves. And sometimes you'll see one or two in the middle of the plant, and that can just be, from a little bit too much water, and you'll get that sometimes after a rainstorm. So if you see one or two, don't panic. They'll come off or fall off on their own. No big deal. There's nothing wrong with your plant. So the two things to do are ask Mother Nature to have cool nights or cooler nights so we can all get these beautiful colors, and focus on the watering. And that's what I've done this year. Mother Nature's not listening to me yet. We're not really having cool nights. It's right now, for example, the humidity outside is about 93%. I mean, it is just brutal out here right now, and it's only 7:30 in the morning. So this is what happens. And now there's a bee. God, I love pollinators. I love nature. I love wildlife. Got it all in the mornings. So Mother Nature may or may not be happy to help you out and give you cooler nights, but if not, really focus on the watering. I know a lot of you will use drip water, drip lines, what do they call them? Soaker hoses. I don't use that. I have a sprinkler, but it's the same kind of concept. Is you want to make sure, even though you have that, and even though it's technically doing the watering job for you, you want to make sure it's giving enough water during those times. You may have to run it more, you may have to run it longer. During those times of super extreme heat, I say and humidity, but it's not really the humidity that factors in so much as it's the brutal sun and the extreme heat. Now, like I said, Little Lime Punch is hardy in zones 3 through 8. If you are in the colder zones, 3, 4, 5, you may not have as much of a worry, although with the way the weather seems to be changing every year for all of us, you may start to have to focus on that. Those of us in the warmer climates, what I've learned very quickly is water is very key during these brutal times. And it does benefit from getting a little bit of afternoon shade. And so when you're siting these, yes, it can take full sun, but in the warmer climates, you might want to give it a little bit afternoon shade too. So now let me show you close up what these look like so far here in early August. So here's what you were seeing before, and let me just pull out so you can see the whole lamppost bed. There's the whole bed. There's the lamppost. In the distance, what you're seeing are Little Lime Hydrangeas over in the next bed over there. So you've got on the right here, you have a Manhattan euonymus, which is a nice evergreen plant. Has beautiful orange berries during the winter that the birds love. And then I have a little candy tuft plant down here that blooms great in the spring and does a little bit of evergreen elsewhere during the season. It's never any that big deal. I keep thinking I'll pull it out when it gets all blah, but I leave it. Blah is a gardening term. This is a Mango Tango agastache, or agastache, and it has not bloomed yet. I just planted that this season, so it's focusing on its leaves, and if I get some blooms, that'll be awesome. But eventually that will have beautiful, beautiful blooms on it. And then next to that is a blue star juniper, which is a very slow grower, but absolutely beautiful. And I love this plant. Again, it's beautiful for winter color, especially because you've got the green of the Manhattan euonymus, and then the blue-green and almost blue of the blue star juniper. And that's beautiful also against the other two evergreen plants in this bed, which are the Kramer's Red Winter Heats. And that provides a nice evergreen color year-round. And then the agastache, the candy tuft, is evergreen but has blooms in the spring. And then we have the Little Lime Punch, which is absolutely beautiful. Now you can see how nice and healthy the green leaves are. And oh, by the way, let me just back up so you see. This was the sprinkler I'm talking about. So we just have one sprinkler in this bed. It's a low one, so it doesn't hit the plants. It just, kind of sprinkles rather on the low end. It doesn't really affect any of the plants. Sometimes they say, especially with roses, for example, you don't want to get water on the foliage. But this is looking good. And I am thrilled with the color so far because it is somewhat of a gamble. You know that you're supposed to water enough, but like I said, do you know every day what the weather's going to be like? You can watch the weather and it'll still surprise you sometimes. But here you can see the beautiful intense pink. And it's just, it's just sort of starting, because over here, You see, this is a beautiful, mostly white so far, and you see at the bottom how it's starting that deep pink. You see a little bit more of it developed up here. And like I said, they say they're going to get to Hawaiian punch kind of colors, like that deep pinkish red. And we'll see. You know, I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm thrilled with this already. I mean, this is such an improvement over last year. Now, another thing to remember is what I talked about in a previous video, and it's called sleep, creep, leap. And it's something that a lot of gardeners talk about, which is very true for perennials and shrubs, which is the first year when you plant a shrub, it's going to sleep. You know, essentially, you're not going to see it do much. Hopefully, it's focusing on its roots. The second year, creep, means that it'll start to grow a little bit bigger. You'll see flowers and you'll say, it's pretty good. I still think it doesn't look like what I saw in the catalog or what I saw online on that website. Well, the third year, leap happens. And I kind of think that's what's happening here. I planted it, like I said, 2 seasons ago. Last season was its first full summer. And so, I don't know if you want to call it the second season or third, but I feel like, and again, it could be because I'm watering better, but it just seems beautiful compared to last season. Now, last season, it had a lot of nice growth, but it's got a lot of new branches, a lot of new growth even down here. And what I did for pruning it, and I did a video in the spring showing you how I prune it, and I'll link to that at the end of this video. I don't really do much with this. You know, the stems are super strong. In fact, I did see somewhere where they say that the stems of Little Lime Punch are actually a little bit stronger than Little Lime Hydrangea. We just had a huge rainstorm 2 nights ago, and this was fine. You know, no drooping, no flopping. Whoa, that is a big bee. Well, it is morning, right? This is their time for breakfast. But this is a very strong shrub, and I only trim off the dead flowers because I leave those on. Actually, I shouldn't say dead. That sounds so awful. The dried flowers. That's a nicer term. Because if you imagine in the wintertime, you've got, you know, the evergreens that I pointed out to you. And with the Kramer's Red Winter Heath, you have fuchsia blooms all winter long next to really pretty dried flowers. Now, you could cut them off and bring them inside. A lot of people do. But I like leaving them out here. I love having the dried flowers as winter interest. I just think it's absolutely beautiful, especially against the evergreens. It's just a really neat combination. This is also a little bandana gold lantana that I threw in here. And it's just starting to get bushy. These kick in usually for us a little bit later in the season. In fact, I've got some over here that are already kicking in, and they look absolutely fabulous. They're starting to do their spread. So they're a little bit more of a kick in later in the season in August plant for me, but I do like them. So this little guy right here just sort of helps out. Brings a little extra pop of color here. Eventually, if this does get to be larger than the 30 inches it is right now, I may not need to have any kind of plants here. I may put something underneath, you know, some other type of perennials underneath. But I keep it bare right now. What is where all the mulch is are tons of daffodils. So that's all bulbs under there. So if anything, I might put a ground cover that has more shallow roots so it doesn't conflict with the daffodils. Now these have a little bit more of that lime green on them, which is really pretty. You know, not all of these change the same way, and that's what I also love about Panicle Hydrangeas, is you're not going to necessarily get every single one white or every single one white and pink. You get all kinds of colors on these, just so beautiful. Here's some white nestled among some other pink. Oh, is that stunning? So remember, Mother Nature needs to give you cooler temperatures at night for the colors to start changing into those beautiful pinks and possibly reds, dragon fruit colors, all those beautiful shades of pink. And you can do your part by making sure your plants get enough water, especially during times of extreme heat and heat stress. Give them a little bit of afternoon shade if you're in the warmer climates, and talk nicely to them. Watch these videos next to help you out with some more information on how to prune your Panicle Hydrangeas, as well as all things Panicle Hydrangeas. And until next time, Happy gardening.